Have you ever noticed that some people seem to carry an invisible influence over their surroundings without uttering a single word? They don't need to shout, plead, or prove anything. They simply withdraw, and then everything begins to change. The atmosphere shifts. People become confused, start asking questions, and feel a strange sense of loss without knowing why. Now imagine if you could do the same. If you stopped reacting mechanically, stopped rushing to respond to everything that comes your way, if you chose silence over argument, withdrawal over explosion, what do you think would happen? That is the crucial point. When you are no longer emotionally, mentally, or physically available at all times, the world around you begins to unravel. Most people are used to controlling you through your reactions, your predictability, your constant presence. But the moment you decide to step back, to hold your energy, to choose deliberate silence, the entire game changes. Those who thought they knew you will realize they never truly did. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." So ask yourself, when you become harder to reach, who is it that grows desperate? Who loses control? Who tries to provoke you just to see you react? That doesn't reveal who you are. It exposes them. And more importantly, it shows that you are still being controlled without realizing it. You are giving too much of yourself to please, to avoid conflict, to hold on to connections that were never truly there for you in the first place. Every time you nod reluctantly, react instantly, or explain yourself just to be understood, you lose a piece of your life force. And at the end of the day, what remains is exhaustion, disappointment, and an emptiness you cannot name. But let me tell you why. You are far too accessible to people who don't even deserve a single minute of your silence. This message is not about turning your back on the world. It's about returning to yourself. It's about learning to choose yourself first in what Carl Jung called the process of individuation, the journey of becoming whole, original, and self contained. And that journey begins when you realize that silence, when placed correctly, carries more weight than 1,000 arguments. Withdrawal is not weakness, it is awareness. It is an expression of inner strength. So let me ask you honestly, how much longer will you allow yourself to be led by the emotions of others? How much longer will you react like a switch every time someone touches your wounds? Perhaps it is time to disconnect, to become quiet, deep, and unpredictable. Because when you stop reacting, everything else is forced to change. We were taught from childhood to always be ready, to respond immediately, to say yes, even when our hearts scream no. We were conditioned to believe that our worth lies in being available whenever others need us. But here's the truth no one teaches you. Excessive availability is not kindness, it's a trap. As long as you believe you must always show up, always please, always be predictable, you will continue to be used, drained, and forgotten the moment you no longer serve someone's needs. Because you are predictable, you become a tool, a button people press when they want an emotional reaction, then ignore when you're no longer useful. You think that if you are always there for others, they will be there for you. But life doesn't work by emotional reciprocity. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted and loved. And it is that very mask that makes you say, "It's okay." When you're tired, reply to messages when you're drained, and keep trying to please the world as if you owe it something. But you owe nothing to anyone except yourself. The more you stand on someone else's stage, the more you disappear from your own. Being constantly available is a subtle form of self abandonment, a way of clinging to acceptance while sacrificing real peace. And what's the cost? Your life energy, divided, drained, and forgotten. Those who demand your constant availability don't truly want you. They want the comfort, the attention, the emotional feeling you provide. But the moment you draw boundaries, remain silent, or refuse to be easily manipulated, they will criticize you. Not because you become worse, but because you're no longer useful. And here lies the harshest truth. The more available you are, the less you are valued. Anything in excess becomes disposable. No one respects what they don't have to earn. No one appreciates what is always there. So pause and ask yourself, who truly deserves your time? Who deserves your attention, your presence, your listening ear? Or in other words, who truly deserves your absence? Before you answer that, you must understand something essential. Why do we overreact? Why do we so easily comply with every demand? What hides behind that automatic urge to respond, to explain, to please? The answer lies in a concept Carl Jung called psychic energy. It is the most precious resource you possess. If you don't learn to protect it, someone else will take it and use it against you. Carl Jung did not see the human mind as a mechanical system that reacts automatically to every external stimulus without consequence. He saw it as an energetic system where every thought, emotion, and action consumes a portion of that energy. So the real question is, are you consciously directing your energy or letting the world decide for you? Every impulsive reaction wastes your psychic energy. Every time you defend yourself from meaningless criticism, argue just to prove you're right, or try to please those who don't value you, you deplete your inner strength on things that don't nourish you. Carl Jung said it clearly: what you resist persists. The more you react, the more you remain bound. Those who live in emotional exhaustion are not weak. They are simply misdirected. And you know what happens to those who live drained? They become vulnerable. And when you are vulnerable, you become an easy target for others. Have you ever noticed that some people seem to command their environment effortlessly, almost supernaturally, without saying a word? They don't shout, they don't beg, they simply withdraw, and everything changes. The energy in the air shifts. People begin to feel the absence, to question, to chase, to sense. Imagine if you did the same. If you stopped reacting immediately to everything, if you chose silence over habit, withdrawal over explosion, what do you think would happen? That is the essence. When you are no longer emotionally, physically, or mentally present at all times, the world around you begins to destabilize because people have learned to control you through your automatic reactions, impulses, and predictability. But the day you choose to step back, the entire dynamic changes. Those who once thought they knew you will realize they never did. Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Reflect on this. When you become less reachable, who grows desperate? Who feels disturbed? Who tries to provoke you just to awaken your emotions? That reveals far more about them than it does about you. And most of all, it shows that you are still being manipulated without noticing. You keep giving yourself away, pleasing others, keeping peace, fearing the loss of those who were never truly with you. And with every reluctant yes, every instant reply, every exposed emotion, you lose another fragment of your energy. So what remains in the end? Fatigue, disappointment, emptiness. But here's the truth. You are too accessible to people who don't even deserve a minute of your silence. This isn't a message about rejecting the world. It's about choosing yourself. It's about learning what Carl Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, authentic, complete. And that process begins when you realize that silence can be more powerful than 1,000 arguments. Withdrawal born from awareness, not avoidance, is an act of power. So I ask you, look straight into your own eyes. How much longer will you let others control you through emotion? How much longer will you react like a puppet every time someone touches your wounds? Perhaps it is time to cut those strings, to withdraw, to become a mystery. Because when you are no longer easily accessible, everything changes. You have been taught to always be present, to respond quickly, to please others, to say yes even when you want to say no. From childhood, you were programmed to believe that your worth is measured by how available you are to others. But here is the truth. that perhaps no one has ever told you clearly. Excessive readiness is not a virtue, it is a prison. And when you continue to believe that you must always be emotionally or otherwise accessible, you will be manipulated, drained, and forgotten the moment you are no longer useful. Do you know why? Because when you are always available, you become predictable, and everything predictable becomes a tool. People begin to use you like an emotional emergency button. They press when they need attention, comfort, or validation, and then leave you behind. But you don't realize this because you are trapped in the illusion that by being present for everyone, someone will eventually be present for you. Life doesn't work that way. Carl Jung once spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted, loved, and validated. It is that very mask that makes you too accessible. You say it's fine while you're suffocating. You reply to messages even when you're exhausted. You justify, defend, and explain yourself as if you owe the world something. But the truth is, the more you stand on someone else's stage, the more you disappear from your own. Constant readiness is a subtle form of self abandonment. It is a disguise for seeking acceptance, avoiding rejection, and trying to control the image others have of you. But that control comes at a cost, the cost of your peace, your life force, dispersed as though it were infinite, when in reality it is limited. Those who want you to be constantly available don't actually want you. They want what you bring: recognition, distraction, emotional comfort. Yet when you change, when you set boundaries, when you stop reacting, these people will grow uneasy, accuse you, call you strange, not because you've changed, but because you no longer serve their needs. This reveals a brutal truth. The more accessible you are, the less you are valued. What is abundant becomes emotionally cheap. No one respects what they do not have to fight for. No one values what is always present. So take a moment to reflect. Who truly deserves your time? Who deserves your attention, your presence, your listening? Or better yet, who deserves your absence? Before you answer, we must understand something vital. Why do we overreact? Why are we so eager to please others? What lies behind this almost automatic urge to justify, to respond, to satisfy? The answer lies in what Carl Jung called psychic energy, and this is precisely what we will explore in depth. Silence is not emptiness, it is fertile ground for inner transformation. When you stop reacting, you begin to observe, and through observation, you start to see patterns you never noticed before. The emotional repetitions, the manipulative games, the cycles of self destruction. Silence brings clarity, and clarity is dangerous to those who seek to control you. Have you noticed how some people panic when you don't reply, when you don't explain, when you simply disappear? It's not that they miss you, it's that your silence removes their power to control the narrative. As long as you speak, you're still in the game. But when you fall silent, you change the rules. And this destabilizes those who feed on your reactions. True silence is not the absence of voice, but the mastery of your energy. It is the refusal to be swept away by others' emotions. It is the conscious choice not to engage in battles unworthy of your peace. Carl Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming your true self, requires this very separation. Because only in silence can you hear yourself without the world interfering. But don't be fooled. Silence comes with a price. It will distance you from those who only valued you for the role you played. It will make you seem incomprehensible to those who only saw you through their own lens. It will make you appear cold, distant, arrogant. But all of that is merely the reaction of those who were never ready to face your death. They wanted you useful, and this is a truth difficult to accept. As you mature, you become more selective with your words. You understand that every word is an investment of energy, and not everyone deserves access to your truth. Sometimes silence is not withdrawal, it is sovereignty. It is the language of those who no longer need to prove anything to anyone. Silence makes others uncomfortable. because it forces them to confront their own thoughts and inner noise. And that discomfort reveals more about them than about you. You don't need to explain your absence. Your silence is explanation enough. Those who feel threatened by it are the ones who depended on your imbalance to maintain control. But the most powerful silence is not the kind that unsettles others. It is the kind that rebuilds you from within. Silence reconnects you to something beyond the need for external approval. In that inner space, free from others' demands, you begin to restore your life energy and reconnect with your true essence. And that is what we will explore further, because eliminating external noise is only the first step. You must learn to use your energy consciously, to choose where it flows, where it stays, and most importantly, where it must never be wasted. It is time to become selective with your soul. If you are reclaiming your energy and establishing boundaries, you will find deep value in my book, Beyond the Shadow. This book examines Carl Jung's core ideas and provides tools to protect your energy, establish boundaries, and reconnect with your true self. But theory and awareness mean nothing if you continue to say yes when your heart wants to say no. If you keep replying to messages that unsettle you, joining meaningless conversations, maintaining relationships that survive only out of habit. Awareness without action is self-deception. True transformation begins when you decide to become more selective, and that requires emotional discipline. Conscious unavailability is not coldness, arrogance, or indifference. It is the refusal to be accessible at all times for any reason. It is reclaiming control of your energy, your time, and your peace. And it starts with small acts. Not replying immediately, taking a breath before reacting, walking away from conflict before it consumes you, turning off your phone without guilt, saying not today, saying I don't care, saying I will not participate. But most importantly, you do not owe anyone an explanation for your absence. You do not have to justify your silence. You owe nothing to anyone except yourself. For many, this will be unforgivable. Because when you refuse to explain, you take away their power to trap you in an emotional narrative where you are always the helper, the empath, the available one. Carl Jung understood that every process of individuation passes through isolation, not depressive isolation, but sacred solitude. It is a time of inward return where you learn to hear your own voice without the world's interference, where you rebuild your identity, not from others' perception, but from your inner center. Do you want a good measure of your growth? Observe who begins to distance themselves when you become more reserved. Notice who tries to provoke you when you stop reacting. See who accuses you of changing when you start protecting yourself. These are not signs of error, they are signs of liberation. Being unavailable is uncomfortable at first. You will feel guilty, selfish, cold, but that discomfort is part of the process of breaking and rebuilding. Because your entire life you've been conditioned to place others before yourself. Change is both natural and necessary. The discomfort is not only within you, it arises in everyone who once benefited from the old version of you. Conscious unavailability is the foundation of self-sovereignty. When you say no to the world, you are saying yes to yourself. When you withdraw from a toxic environment, you affirm that your peace is worth more than any false connection. And when you stop explaining yourself, you begin to be respected, even if only by a few. But not everyone is ready to face this kind of presence, because your emotional absence will expose the wounds they do not wish to confront. It will reveal how deeply they have depended on your emotional chaos to feel a sense of control. And in that very moment, the cracks begin to appear. Along with them come pain, loneliness, and the sense of losing something precious, when in reality, you are freeing yourself. But what happens next? After the distance, what is born from that silence? We will explore this in the next part, the rebirth that only occurs when you have the courage to be misunderstood, to stand alone, and to become whole through your own strength. It is time to recognize that the solitude of the strong is the path to true freedom. When you stop being ready to respond to every request from everyone, something profound begins to unfold. At first, there is silence, a silence so uncomfortable it feels like an internal scream. You begin to question yourself. Am I doing the right thing? Am I being too harsh? Am I losing the people who once cared for me? But gradually, that silence starts to transform. It purifies, soothes, and heals. Then comes solitude, but not the loneliness of absence, rather the solitude of full presence with yourself. It is the solitude of the strong, those who no longer betray themselves just to keep others around. And in the space that was once chaos, clarity begins to emerge. Where anxiety once ruled, peace now resides. Where dependency once existed, a new strength is born, the strength of becoming whole within yourself. Carl Jung once said that the process of individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, requires that you separate from the crowd, shed the false identities, and walk alone for a while. And that is exactly what you are doing when you decide to no longer be constantly available. You are not escaping the world. You are returning to yourself. At that precise moment, you cease to be a reactor and become a creator. You are no longer shaped by circumstances. You begin shaping reality from within. Those who feel uneasy about your absence reveal that they never truly wanted you. They only wanted the role you played. And when you no longer fit that role, they no longer know what to do with you. That is liberation. You will lose some people, but you will find yourself again. You will leave certain places, but you will reconnect with your true essence. You will be misunderstood, but eventually you will begin to be respected. Because when you are no longer easily available for anything or anyone, you become precious, rare, unforgettable. And make no mistake, this is rebirth. This is a new beginning. The beginning of a life where you no longer accept emotional leftovers, psychological games, or voids disguised as affection. From now on, you welcome only what aligns with your peace, your truth, and your wholeness. And if you've come this far, it means that a part of you is already ready for this new path. A part of you already understands that being loved means nothing if it requires you to abandon yourself for it. True self-love begins when you choose yourself, even if it means being alone for a while. So tell me in the comments, are you ready to be misunderstood, rejected, even disliked for the sake of your inner freedom? Are you willing to pay the price to become who you truly are? If this message resonates with you, if it carries meaning for you, write in the comments, I choose my peace. Let's see how many of us here are ready for this transformation. And don't forget to continue to the next video. It's more important than you think. See you there.